So previously, what all we have discussed, ma? I think I took suture materials one, right? And then we have also discussed regarding infections also, right? And then what all we have discussed?
Burns.
Burns, right? Very good. So three topics we have discussed. So today we have benign and malignant swellings in general. We're not going into detail of it. Detail again, it will be done in separate wise it when it comes up. Right now, benign and malignant swellings in general. So if you have any doubts in between, you can interrupt me. You can ask up. No issues. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to start up. So 72 of you are there. Okay. So benign and malignant swellings. So we have two terms over here. You have lump and a swelling. So when you come to the lump is just big mass of body tissue. Whereas when you come to a swelling, it is an enlargement or protuberance in the body due to any cause. So this swelling, it can again be because of, it can be classified into, or it can be congenital, traumatic, an inflammatory, neoplastic, or a miscellaneous swelling, right? So you have two terms, one is lump and the other is swelling. Lump is just a vague mass of body tissue, whereas swelling is an enlargement or protuberance in the body due to any cause. So it can either be in congenital, a traumatic, inflammatory, neoplastic, or miscellaneous, right? So when the term tumor, it is a growth of new cells, so which proliferate independently, right? So whereas in the cells, the proliferation of cells in a normal human body, it's a regulated process. Whereas in a tumor, it's unregulated. They proliferate independently. So now again, it can be a benign tumor or a malignant tumor. So benign tumor, it proliferates slowly with little evidence of mitosis and invasiveness. So when you see a benign tumor, it is benign. It is not going to invade. It's not going to have excessive mitosis or something. Whereas a malignant tumor is the one which proliferates fastly. It has invasiveness and mitosis. Okay. So once again, swelling, right? So there are two terms, lump and a swelling. That needs to be very clear. Lump is just a vague mass of body tissue, whereas swelling is any enlargement or protuberance due to any cause. It can either be because of congenital swelling, traumatic swelling, inflammatory swelling, or a malignant or a benign, that is a neoplastic swelling, or it can be miscellaneous ones, right? So you are going to have benign and malignant swelling. So benign swellings, they usually occur at a younger age, whereas malignant swellings, they usually occur at an older age, that is above the 40 years of age. But both the benign and malignant, they can occur at any age group. Commonly benign in the younger, malignant in the elderly, right? So duration for the benign, it is usually a slow growth. So patient will say, I have a swelling for a long duration of time. Whereas in a malignant swelling, patient will say that there was a swelling and within some time, it has grown to a very big size or huge size. Or patient would say the swelling was there from last 4 or 5 years and suddenly the swelling has increased excessively. So that will indicate that the swelling has become a malignant swelling. So usually benign swelling, they usually have slow grade, whereas malignant swelling, they have a rapid growth. Pain usually absent for the benign swelling, whereas malignant swelling, that usually very painful. So this pain, malignant swelling, because maybe, for example, if you think of a parotid carcinoma, some tumor, a malignant tumor of the parotid, initially, it may not be painful, but once it starts infiltrating into nerves surrounding and all, it will become painful. That indicates that malignant swelling has, that's a malignant swelling. It has become painful. One. A second reason, a malignant swelling might have got infected, and once it is infected and all, it becomes painful. So in general, benign swellings they are painless, whereas malignant swellings they are painful. Loss of weight never seen with the benign swelling, whereas with the malignant swelling it is common or it is present, right? Loss of function not seen, whereas loss of function in malignant swelling it is usually seen very early, right? For example, you take the same parotid carcinoma, a tumor of the parotid. So you have nerves, you have facial nerve which is going to supply the motor, which is going to supply different muscles and all. Once nerve is infiltrated, the muscles, the loss of their supply, they go for paralysis. So there is loss of function, right? Mobility. So mobility for the benign swelling, they are freely mobile. But whereas a malignant swelling, the mobility is lost, right? because these swellings are going to infiltrate deeply. They're going to infiltrate into the muscles, onto the surrounding structures, or into the bone and all. So they become fixed. They're not mobile, right? Surface. The surface of the benign swelling usually smooth, whereas that of the malignant swelling it is irregular, right? Margins for the benign swelling it is definite and smooth, whereas margins of the different malignant swelling they're not definite. You can't define the margins of them, right? They're infiltrating surroundingly, they're infiltrating in deeper structures and all. We can't define the margins exactly, and they're irregular. Consistency for a benign swelling it is usually firm, but whereas it often malignant swellings, it may be hard or it may be variable in consistency, right? Pressure effects, they're usually absent. Here, pressure effects, they're usually present. Pressure effects are nothing but the swelling because the tumor is bulky and all and is infiltrating. It is going to infiltrate and it's going to compress the nerves or surrounding structures. Maybe neurovascular structures are compressed up and the patient has pressure effects. That is going to be seen in the malignant swelling because they are going to be proliferate excessively and they are also going to cause compression, right? Lymph nodes, they are not enlarged for the benign swellings, but whereas for the malignant swellings which drain through the lymphatics, they are enlarged, right? Distant metastasis, a metastasis is not seen in the malignant swelling, but whereas metastasis is seen commonly with the with the malignant swelling, you have metastasis. And with the benign swellings, you don't have metastasis, right? Recurrence. Benign swellings, once you remove, they're not going to recur. Whereas malignant swellings, they may recur even after excision. Depends upon the stage and all. Secondary changes are not seen with the benign swellings commonly, but whereas they're often present with the malignant swellings. So benign swellings you can classify into congenital. So congenital can be a dermoid cyst or hemangiomas. Inflammatory, they can be an abscess that is following an infection, inflammation, abscess, boil, carbuncle, erysipelas or cellulitis. Traumatic swelling, following a trauma, there will be collection of blood resulting in hematoma, a swelling and a hematoma, right? Now, neoplastic swellings. So they can be benign, which include lipoma or tumor arising from the fat tissue, that is lipoma, a fibrous tissue, fibroma, a papilloma, pedunculated or sessile. And then you have neurofibroma, lymphangioma, moles. Miscellaneous, sebaceous cyst, warts, condyloma. Okay. So dermoid cyst. So these are all cystic swelling. So when you say cystic swelling, they contain some fluid, right? So here the cyst, the dermoid cyst, it is lined by squamous epithelium, which contains a desquamated cells. It contains a mixture of sebum, sweat, and desquamated epithelial cells. So what are the common sites? So these are going to occur at the sites. It depends upon different. So you have an implantation dermoid, that is, for example, following a trauma, commonly over the thumb or my index finger. What happens? The outer epidermal, the squamous epithelium, it is going to go inside, and now it starts secreting, resulting in small cyst over the thumb and all. That is what is implantation dermoid. That is following a trauma or some injury. The squamous epithelium outside, which is secreting the squamous cells, dead, debrided, desquamated cells, and all, it's going to go inside. Now it's going to start secreting, resulting in what is implantation dermoid, right? So the other you have. So what are common sites of occurrence of these? You have outer angle of orbit, right? So you can see here at the outer angle of the orbit, there's a swelling over here. So there's a common location, very common location of an dermoid cyst. Or this is what is very post-auricular dermoid. Just behind the ear, you have an auricular dermoid. One more is sublingual, just beneath its tongue, right? So dermoid cyst, they're painless, slow growing, they're round, putty. Putty is when you apply the pressure, it changes the shape. You apply the pressure to it. So for example, like dove, you prepare wheat flour, right? You prepare wheat flour you put up water and you prepare an atta. That is what is dove. So dove, when you apply the pressure, it's going to deepen or it's going to change its shape. So here also when you apply a pressure, it's going to change up the shape. So that's what is putty, right? And it is going to be free from the skin. So you pinch up, it will free from the skin. And deeper structures. Since it's benign swelling, it's not going to be fixed to deeper structures. It's going to be soft and cystic in consistency. Cystic is whenever you contain some fluid and all, fluid or a gas. So fluid. Fluctuation will be positive. Fluctuation is nothing but, so when there is a collection of a fluid, for example, you imagine a balloon. The balloon is filled with water, right? When I apply a pressure below, what will happen? The water will shift above, and the above the fingers, my hand will expand, right? Now apply a pressure above, what will happen? All the water is going to shift down and is going to move the fingers apart. So this is what is called fluctuation. You apply the pressure below, it goes above, apply above, it goes down, right? That is what is fluctuation is. So here also, since it is contain the fluid and all, the dermoid cyst, since it is a cystic swelling containing fluid, so it is always going to have fluctuation which will be positive. And translucency or transillumination or translucency is going to be negative. Right? If it is going to contain a clear fluid, when you apply a torch and all the rays are going to cross up and you're going to see an illumination on the other side, right? But whereas when you contain debrided cells, destabilized cells, sebum and all, thick material and all, it will not allow the rays to pass. So translucency, it will be negative. Transillumination will be negative. Margins will yield to pressure of the finger. That is, slip away sign is negative. Okay, you understand these two. Whenever you have any cystic swelling in the body, when you're going to try to hold the cyst of it, the cyst wall will yield. And once the cyst wall will yield to your finger, the pressure, it is cystic swelling. But whereas lipoma, it contains fat and all. So once you apply a pressure over it, it is going to slip. It's a fatty tissue containing the lipomatter cells, that is fat cells and all. So once you apply a pressure of it, it's going to slip. That is what is lipoma. And this lipoma, when you have a slip sign, it is characteristic of lipoma, not seen in anything. But whereas in dermoid cyst, when you try to feel the edge of the cyst wall, it is going to yield. That is, you can palpate the edge of it. Okay. So in case of lipoma, it is going to slip. That is, slip away sign is positive or characteristically present. But whereas it is absent in case of dermoid cyst, right? So you have implantation types. You have implantation dermoid or acquired dermoid, or you have tubular dermoid or teratomatous dermoid, right? Treatment. So here in this case, we have is implantation dermoid. Okay. So implantation dermoid, what treatment we do is what is excision of the cyst. Once you excise the whole of the cyst, it is not going to recur again, right? Hemangiomas. So these are tumors which are going to arise from the benign tumors arising from the blood vessels, right? They can be classified into capillary hemangiomas or cavernous hemangiomas or plexiform hemangiomas. Capillaries from the capillary, cavernous from the blood vessels, and plexiform hemangiomas. So capillary hemangiomas, there are again different types. You have port wine stain. You can see very classically the face is involved up here. Port wine stain, and as well as in salmon patch, right? Spider nevus, just like that of in the legs of a spider. And then you have Campbell D. Morgan spots and strawberry angioma. Okay. So capillary hemangioma, as you can see here, it is usually a flat, right? It is usually, you can see it is usually a flat lesion that is bright red or purple in color, and then you have it branches. That is, once you apply the pressure, all the blood is going to shift up, and once you are going to relieve, all it comes up. That is what is blanching, right? Cavernous hemangioma, the soft, spongy, bluish swelling, right? Blanches of pressure, and it is compressible, right? Whereas plexiform hemangioma, it is a network of interwoven dilated arteries, just like a bag of earthworms. Now coming to inflammatory swellings. So we can classify into acute inflammatory and chronic inflammatory swellings. So inflammatory swellings, as we already know that, so we have different signs of inflammation. That is going to be rubor, redness, calor, dolor, tumor, and functional leisure, that is loss of function, right? So patient is going to have pain, redness, heat, they are predominant, right? The presence of brawny induration and edema, they are conspicuously present, right? Whereas chronic inflammatory swelling, all signs are present, but they are decreased because there is a chronic inflammation. So some signs you may not have that proper. It is decreased signs, right? Swelling is more predominant. Brawny induration, edema, they are absent. Okay. So in acute inflammatory swelling, all signs of inflammation are present. That is calor, dolor, rubor, and tumor and functional leisure. Whereas chronic inflammatory swelling, they are present but decreased. And edema and brawny induration, they are seen with the acute inflammation. Whereas chronic inflammation, you don't have that, right? So some sarcomas, like osteosarcomas, it mimics that of an acute inflammatory swelling. That is, patient is going to have pain, redness, swelling, heat, and all. How we differentiate? Here, when acute inflammation, there is presence of edema, brawny induration, and there is presence of tenderness. That is not going to be seen with the osteosarcomas, which mimic that of acute inflammation. And it's an acute inflammatory swelling. Usually they form pus, inflammation, and followed by pus and all. So in acute inflammatory swellings, once they form a pus, abscess and all, there's going to be discharge of pus. Osteosarcomas, you're not going to have those, right? There's going to be the draining area of that is going to be, the lymph nodes are going to be enlarged, right? They're going to become tender, painful, right? And leukocytosis is going to be seen. That is not going to be seen with the osteosarcomas, right? Chronic inflammatory swelling. So how they differ up? Occasionally there's going to be diminution in the size. So how to differentiate between chronic inflammatory swellings and that mimicking that of a malignancy? There's going to be decrease in the size of the swellings for chronic inflammatory swellings. Whereas in the tumor, it is not going to reside. It's never going to decrease in size, right? Abscess. So it is a localized accumulation of neutrophils with a tissue necrosis in the dermis and subcutaneous tissue. The commonest organism that is responsible for abscess, Staphylococcus aureus, right? Abscess. So clinical features, when you say the patient is going to present to us with complaints of a swelling, that is going to be painful. Patient will say that there's a discharge of pus from the swelling. Okay. And so clinical features, when you examine up, you can see up, it's in red, inflamed, erythematous swelling. Once you apply the pressure, patient says pain, tenderness, right? And once you apply from the center of the spot or the pus pointing, there will be discharge of pus, right? It may or may not be fluctuant. So abscess, usually they are fluctuant, but there are some regions of the body which don't have fluctuation positive. Okay. For example, parotid, breast, hysterectal abscess. So these are all covered by thick fascia and all. For the abscess to develop fluctuation, abscess is nothing but it's going to contain the pus. So therefore the fluctuation will be there. That is, once I apply pressure, the fluid is going to shift. Once I apply pressure over there, it's going to shift. That is what is fluctuation, as I already explained, right? So here, once since they are supplied by thick fascia around it, once you apply pressure, you can't elicit that fluctuation. And it will take a long time to elicit that, right? So that is in region of parotid, hysterectal, and in breast abscess, right? So different types of them. You have pyogenic abscess, pyemic abscess, and cold abscess, right? So pyogenic, it's most common, pus forming pyogenic. Source of infection, cellulitis or acute lymphadenitis, right? Clinical features, all those signs of acute inflammation will be there. It is red, hot, inflamed, tender. There's presence of pus, pain, discharge. And very characteristically for an abscess, you have, it becomes throbbing sensation. The pain becomes very throbbing. It's going to be throb. There's presence of edema and as well as brawny induration, right? Fluctuation is present. But in some regions, as I told you, like hysterectal abscess or breast and all, it's going to be absent. Common sites, it can occur anywhere. Okay, pyogenic abscess, commonly like liver, they have mentioned. Pyemic abscess. So pyemic is, so here there is a foci of, there's an emboli of infective emboli, it gets largest. Once it reaches into the blood vessels, from there it can travel anywhere in the body, right? So there's some infection foci somewhere, and from there it has reached the blood vessel, and from the blood vessels now it will travel anywhere, right? Once it has reached into the vein, now carried up into the heart, into the liver, from the liver, heart, and from the heart it can go up anywhere, right? Commonly it occurs in the subfacial plane. Acute features, that is redness, etc., are usually absent up. Constitutional symptoms will be there. There is high grade fever, chills, and rigor will be there, right? Common sites in the subfacial plane, multiple arises when one has been incised. Once you incise up, you can see multiple open up, right? Cold abscess, like these are commonly following a sequel of tuberculous infection, right? So here there is nothing but there's just collection of caseous material is there in the lymph nodes. There's no collection of pus unless and until there is some secondary infection. They're not reacting, they're not painful, they're not hard, they're not tender, right? Neck and axilla. So commonly neck and the axilla, they are more commonly the involved region for a cold abscess that is following a tuberculous infection. They may originate from the ends of the bones or surface through the facial planes. You have boils. So boils, so it is nothing but it's an infection of hair follicle by Staphylococcus aureus, right? So since it's an acute inflammation, again the patient is going to have all those signs and symptoms. That is, patient is going to have, it will start initially as a painful, then becomes a very indurated hard swelling. And patient is going to have tenderness, there's going to be edema, right? After some days, there's going to be softening with the pus pointing, and there's going to be pustule, and there's going to be discharge of pus. It ruptures up spontaneously and discharging a greenish yellow material. Okay, and then deep cavity lined by granulation tissue, it is going to heal up. So furuncle or boil, nothing but it's an infection of an hair follicle, commonly by Staphylococcus aureus. Patient is going to have all those signs of inflammation with a pus discharge, and after some time it is going to rupture up and is going to discharge pus. Pustule is going to come out, pus, and later on it may heal up with granulation tissue. Right? Common sites back and neck. Right? Complications. So complications, it may rupture up, or it may turn up if this patient is going to be having any immunocompromised state. It may develop into a pyemic infection, and through the pyemic infection, it may reach up anywhere. Patient may have infections all around. Once the infected emboli lodges in venous system and all. Right? Carbuncle. The carbuncle is also a bigger form of a boil, wherein then the causative organism remains the same. But what to be noted here is carbuncle, commonly seen in males who are more than 40 years, and they are very commonly they are diabetic. Okay, and here it is going to progress very rapidly. It starts similarly in the similar fashion as that of a boil. So if you see the above picture, it is that of an boil or a furuncle, and the lower one is what is it? The carbuncle. Okay, so it's going to progress very rapidly. So male more than 40 years and diabetic, and very pathognomically you're going to see sieve-like cribriform appearance. So if you see, it's like pores. You have pores, openings, and all. Cribriform appearance is going to be seen, right? Multiple openings are going to be there, which are going to coalesce, and they're going to form an ulcer with ashy gray slough base, and slough separates up with granulation tissue later on. Okay. Other inflammatory swellings like erysipelas and cellulitis. Erysipelas, it is cuticular lymphangitis, spreading cuticular lymphangitis, where cellulitis is infection of the skin and subcutaneous tissue, and as well as fascia. Common organisms will be Streptococcus pyogenes. Predisposing factors like debilitation or poor health. One second. So, sorry for the disturbance. So, erysipelas, as I told you, it is a cuticular lymphangitis, whereas cellulitis, it's nothing but it is an infection of skin and subcutaneous tissue. And the most common organism being Streptococcus pyogenes, right? So, patient may have predisposing factors, there may be poor health, comorbid infection, or some comorbidity, or patient may have diabetics or some other things, right? Features: erysipelas, raised rash that has sharply defined margin, whereas cellulitis, it is just spreading. You don't have any definitive margins or edge. Is there? Yep. So erysipelas, it starts as a rosy red rash and disappears on pressure, whereas cellulitis will have all signs of inflammation, redness, itching, stiffness at the site, and inoculation. Since it's a spreading infection, it's going to spread up. They're going to have red streaks sometimes, but it's size of lymphangitis, right? So erysipelas, we may have vesicles that may contain a serous fluid. Cellulitis, vesicles, it contains a pus, right? Traumatic swellings. So traumatic swelling, there is just following a trauma, patient is going to have a traumatic swelling that is going to contain an hematoma, right? So as simple as that. So subcutaneous, you can see here is an trauma, more commonly maybe falling in road traffic accident where it has been, patient is having abrasions, multiple abrasions also, along with an hematoma, right? And then you have sebaceous cyst. So sebaceous cyst, it is cyst arising from the roughen sebaceous gland, right? So there's going to be sebaceous gland that's going to, through its duct, it's going to discharge the sebum outside. So once this duct is blocked by the sebaceous gland, there's going to be a collection of all the sebum and everything, resulting in what is, we call it as a sebaceous cyst. So the gland, it becomes distended by its own secretions, and it's going to contain sebum, and there's presence of a black punctum, right? If you just see over here, the swelling, so this is swelling, there's a sebaceous cyst, and there's at the center you can make out there's a small black dot, and that is what is a punctum, right? So that is nothing but the punctum is nothing but it is an obstructed sebaceous duct. So the common regions include that is commonly seen over the scalp, face, or the scrotum. Scrotum is the most common site. They can be single or multiple, smooth and round shape, and whose margins are well defined. You can make out those margin, and they are will yield to palpating finger. Fluctuation, as I told you, it is will be positive, right? That is why it's because it's going to contain a fluid, a sebaceous material, that is going to be semi-fluid material. Once you apply the pressure, fluid is going to shift, right? The same thing. Transformation, obviously, it is going to be negative because transformation you can see only when the patient contains when you have a clear fluid. So once you have a clear fluid, transformation will be positive. When you don't have a clear fluid, it will be negative. Here it is going to contain a sebum that is going to interrupt the transmission of rays, light rays, and all. So the transformation is going to be negative, right? Other things that we have is condyloma. So condyloma, so it is nothing but an hypertrophy of epidermis occurring at the mucocutaneous junction. More common example like the mouth, angles of the mouth, anus or vulva. So it may be fungating, sessile raised but flat growth with moist and sodden surface. So you can see up the condylomas over here, right? And then what we have is warts. So warts, so these are the patches of overgrown skin with hyperkeratosis, commonly seen over or found in hands, face, knees, sole of the feet and axilla. They are firm and covered with rough surfaces when filiform excrescences. They're painful when they're repeatedly rubbed and they become infected. Okay, so you can make out the foot lower down. You have multiple warts, right, and condyloma above, right, and benign neoplastic swellings. Other benign neoplastic swelling like lipoma. So lipoma, it is also called as an universal tumor, right? So universal tumor because it can occur anywhere in the body, right? Because you have a fat deposition anywhere, so they can occur anywhere. So these are the tumors. That is benign tumor going to arise from the rough and adipocytes. So depending upon the location, it can either be intramuscular, right, that is present in the muscle. It can be subfacial, present just beneath the fascia, or it can be submucosal, that is just beneath the mucosa, right? Sometimes they will be just present just beneath the you have an intestine just beneath the mucosa. The adipocytes from the mucosa may give rise to a lipoma, submucosal swelling, and and this may sometimes also results in intersusception. That is one loop of bowel is going to intercept, right? And that is the most common time when we find out for a submucosal lipoma. Otherwise, what is intraarticular, right? Other varieties, so you can have an encapsulated lipoma. Encapsulated lipoma is the one which is you have a very capsule around it, whereas a diffuse lipoma is one whereas you don't have proper exact margins of it. It is diffuse, spreading, right? Multiple lipomas. So some patients they may have multiple lipomas over the body. That is what is called Derkham's disease, right? So if you usually see what we see is usually small, they may attain a large size, right? As I told, benign swellings they take long time, right? They grow for a long period of time or they are present for a long duration, right? On examination, they are soft, lobulated consistency. When you feel up, they're very soft and lobulated. Where are we? Yeah, 1 second. So soft and lobulated consistency, right? They're slowly growing and they're painless. They can occur in any age group, but they are calm. They are rare in children, right? So skin overlying the swelling, that is over the lipoma, it is going to be normal. But in case of a large swelling, so any large swellings of the body and all, it's going to cause a pressure. So it's going to cause the pressure over the overlying skin, and the overlying skin is going to be stretched out, right? And it's freely mobile over the deeper structures. The skin may be pinched up, and characteristically, what I told previously was the slip away sign. That is, since it's going to contain the fat tissue and all, once you apply a pressure at the edge of it, at the margin of it, it's going to slip, right? That is very characteristically seen with the lipoma, not with any other swellings. But whereas in case of an cystic swellings, when you're trying to yield or hold the edge of the swelling, it will yield to the pressure. That is, you will be able to palpate the edge. But whereas here it's going to slip under your palpating finger. That is what is slip away sign. Transformation, sometimes falsely it may be present, but as such their transformation is negative. But sometimes when they are in semi-liquid state, it may be present. Fluctuation, classically speaking, actually speaking, they are absent fluctuation. But sometimes you may have semi-fluctuation. That is because the fatty tissue at a body temperature, it may be in semi-liquid state sometimes. And once it is in semi-liquid state, you may have some false fluctuation and false transformation also. Okay, so this is what is the slip away sign being demonstrated here. That is, when you're trying to hold the edge of it, it is going to slip under your palpating finger. To try to feel the edge, it is a lipomatous tissue, that is a lipoma, that is a fatty tissue, it's going to slip under your palpating finger. That is, slip away sign is positive or present. Then, so diffuse lipoma, it does not possess features of lipoma, pseudolipoma. So subcutaneous or intermuscular tissue of the neck, extending into cheek. So they can be present anywhere in the body. So this is going to extend. It's not going to have a proper true margins. It's going to expand. That is what is diffuse. It does not have any capsule. Seen in persons taking excessive alcohol. So multiple lipoma, it is also called as lipomatosis. So sometimes when you have a nerve tissue along with the lipoma, it may be painful, and often it's going to contain nerve tissue. That becomes what is called neurolipomatosis. Okay, so commonly seen in limbs and trunk, it is called as Duncombe's disease or adiposis dolorosa. Right. So there, when you have a nervous tissue along with the lipoma, it may become painful. There are tender lipomas or lipomatous swellings seen on the trunk, commonly affects the woman. Complications. What all complications it can undergo is, it can undergo calcification, it can undergo saponification when you have, and myxomatous degeneration. It may get infected, or it may get ulcerated. The skin over it may get ulcerated, or it may develop into a malignant change. That is going to be a liposarcoma. So these complications are mainly going to occur the subcutaneous tissue of the thigh, buttock, and retroperitoneal tissue. Okay, so lipomas. So here you can just see a diagrammatic representation wherein lipoma is there. What to do? So what we are going to do is we are going to do simple excision. Once you excise the lipoma, it's a benign tumor. You excise it. The treatment is excision, and it's not going to recur back again. Okay, papilloma, right? So it is an overgrowth of all layers of the skin. So here you can see it. So whereas here it is an pedunculated with branched villus process. It's a pedunculate. You have a pedicle, right? So you have a central fibrovascular core that is lined by an epithelium outside. So patient is going to have a swelling that is going to be in papilliferous swelling, which may be pedunculated or a sessile swelling, right? Pedunculated when you have a pedicle, sessile when you don't have here, as in this case, right? So it is usually soft and solid. It may be soft or it may vary to solid. It moves with the skin, right? Sometimes the surface may become hard, resulting in what is called horny papilloma, right? Complications, it can ulcerate, or it can bleed, or it can also turn into malignancy. Other sites that can occur, these papillomas, it can occur lip, tongue, colon, rectum, kidney, etc. Right? Fibroma. So it is a tumor that is going to arise from the fibrous tissue. So a true fibroma, it rarely occurs. So majority of the time, you don't have a true fibroma. Majority of the time, it is mixed with some other tissue. You will always have a component of lipoma mixed with the fibrous tissue. You have fat cells and you have fibrous tissue resulting in what is called the fibrolipoma or fibromyoma or a neurofibroma. You have a nervous tissue along with a fibrous tissue, right? So obviously these also are going to be painless, firm, well circumscribed lesion. They are going to move freely on the underlying structures, and according to consistency, it may vary. They will be soft or firm. Commonly or usually, when you have this fibroma, it is going to be firm. But when it is going to be lipofibroma, it may be soft in consistency a bit, right? Desmoid tumor. So it is in recurrent Paget's fibroid tissue. So unusual, commonly arises in the rectus sheath. Recurrence is very common, and previously it was thought to be malignant. Now it has been found that it's not that malignant. Okay. So other what we have is lymphangioma. These are localized cluster of dilated lymph sacs in the skin and subcutaneous tissue, which cannot connect in the normal lymph system. So what we need to understand, for example, lymphangioma. So here the lymphatic tissues, they have been formed properly. They are going to produce lymph. Now this lymph is going to drain to lymph nodes. So the efferent lymphatics here are absent. Okay, so the lymphatic system, it has developed up properly only. There's production of all the lymph tissue, everything and all. But the draining lymphatics, they are absent or they are blocked, resulting in what is lymphangioma. That is localized cluster of dilated lymph sacs in the skin and subcutaneous tissue, now which cannot connect to the normal lymph system because efferents are absent or blocked. So it can be simple or capillary, cavernous or cystic hygroma, simple or capillary. They present either as a small vesicles or blisters. They are present on the inner side of thigh, buttock, axilla. They vary in size from 0.5 to 4 millimeters in diameter. Lesions is soft and spongy. You have multiple cysts or one or two large cysts. Fluctuation, since they are going to contain the fluid and all, fluctuation will obviously be present. Apply pressure, all the lymph is going to shift. Fluctuation is present. Fluid thrill is also going to be seen. I'll explain it. And translucency. So it's going to contain a lymph which is a clear fluid. Once you apply a torch over it, all the light rays are going to be transmitted and you're going to see illumination on the other side. That is, translucency is going to be positive, right? And swelling here is not compressible. But whereas in hemangioma, when you see, it was compressible. That it was arising from the blood vessels and they had communication. But whereas in lymphangioma, the efferents are blocked. So they are not compressible. And lymph nodes, they are not enlarging. And margins of these swelling, they are indistinct. Cavernous. So they are present as a bigger lymphatic swellings which are situated deep. They commonly occur on the face, mouth, lips, axilla. Lesion is soft and lobulated. They may symbol or multiple and communicating lymphatic cysts. Okay. Fluctuation in translucency, they are present. Cystic hygroma is very commonly asked up. So the common form of lymphangioma. So here the lymphatic sacs, so efferents are there, but efferents are blocked up. Once the efferents are blocked up, all the lymphatic lymph is going to accumulate, resulting in what is cystic hygroma. And most commonly it may present, it is seen usually in children's. That is, following a delivery, patient will have a swelling over the neck. So commonly, so this is what is cystic hygroma. Or sometimes it may cause dystocia, that is difficulty in labor, difficult labor. Okay. So you have large cyst-like cavities that contain a clear watery fluid. They're commonly found in the axilla, mediastinum, groin, pelvis, or in the neck. They're soft swelling, right? They're compressible. Fluctuation, obviously it is going to be present. It's going to contain a clear fluid. Translucency is also present. No lymph node enlargement, right? Neurofibroma. So here the tumor is going to contain both neural and as well as fibrous tissue. So you're going to have local neurofibromas and a generalized neurofibromas. So when you have local neurofibromas, they occur at any age group, but they're commonly seen in the adults. They're present in the subcutaneous tissue. They are firm, smooth swelling. They're slightly painful. They cannot be moved in direction of the nerve, right? So if the nerve is going to arise in one direction, you can't move it. You can move it perpendicular to it, but not along the direction of it. So paresthesia and tingling sensation is common, right? Since there's going to be involvement of nerve and all, paresthesia, altered sensation is going to be there, and tingling sensation is also going to be there. Generalized neurofibromas, they are going to involve the cranial, they will involve the cranial, spinal as well as peripheral nerves. Multiple nodules are going to be seen throughout the body, right? So in the disease that we have, what is called as von Recklinghausen's disease. So multiple neurofibromatosis is what is von Recklinghausen's disease, but whereas that of multiple lipomatosis is what is called Derkham's disease, right? So nodules are there, they're going to vary from being firm to soft in consistency, right? And then you have plexiform neurofibromatosis. Plexiform, it occurs in connection with the branches of fifth cranial nerve. So what's fifth cranial nerve? Trigeminal nerve, right? Along the distribution of the trigeminal nerve, you're going to have these neurofibromatosis growth, right? So enormous swellings which hangs out down and folds. It mostly affects the upper limb and may be associated with the generalized neurofibromatosis. So commonly on the distribution of the nerve, right? Here you can make out. Elephantiasis neurofibromatosis, it affects the skin, it becomes coarse, dry, thick, resembles an elephant's skin, and subcutaneous tissue is replaced by fibrous tissue, which is thick and edematous. So this is what is neurofibromatosis, right? We'll just give a small summary of it, right? Swelling. So remember these two terms very commonly asked and you very commonly you get confused up with lump. It's just vague mass of body tissue, right? But whereas swelling is an enlargement or a protuberance in the body that may be due to any cause. So it's an enlargement. Swelling is an enlargement or protuberance in the body due to any cause, which can be congenital, traumatic, inflammatory, neoplastic, right? So you have tumors which may be benign and malignant, right? So benign and malignant, we have differentiated into both of which. Benign, they are slow growing, the pain is usually absent, there's no loss of weight, there is no loss of function. Whereas malignant, there's loss of function, there's loss of weight, there is going to grow very rapidly, they're going to be painful, right? Mobility is present for the benign, it's going to be absent for the malignant, right? Pressure effects are going to be absent for the benign, but where they're going to be present for the malignant. Consistency is firm for the benign, and for the malignant, it is going to be hard in consistency. The margins are going to be definite and smooth for the benign, and whereas for this one, malignant swellings are going to be not definite. You can't see the margins; they are irregular because it's invading, right? So you are invading or expanding, spreading, and all. You can't make the margins definitely, right? Metastasis, obviously, it's a benign tumor, not going to be seen. Malignant tumor, you are going to have metastasis, right? Recurrence, once you remove the tumor for the benign, it's not going to recur. For the malignant, it may recur, depending upon what stage it is, right? So secondary changes not seen with the benign, but with the with the malignant, they're commonly seen, right? So you can classify benign, congenital, inflammatory, traumatic, neoplastic. Congenital, right? So dermoid, we have already discussed a common like outer angle of the orbit or a post-auricular dermoid, or it can be sublingual, right? And benign tumor. So treatment for the benign tumors and all, once you excise it off, they're not going to recur back again. But whereas a malignant tumor, depending upon the stage, it may recur back again, right? So we have inflammatory swellings, right? For example, abscess is there. The treatment of the abscess is going to be an incision and drainage. There's a collection of pus, you're going to drain the abscess, right? So you're going to do an incision and drainage, drain the abscess, and then you're going to treat it with giving antibiotics to decrease the infection, and then you're going to allow it to heal with granulation tissue, right? And drainage, right? What we have is what is called Hilton's method of drainage of the abscess, which we have already discussed up previously also, I think, in the previous class up. That is, we're always going to make an incision along the direction of the neurovascular bundle, right? Along the direction of the neurovascular bundle, you're going to make, right? You're not going to make across it. When you're going to make across it, you're going to damage or you're going to cut down the neurovascular bundle. So make it along the direction of it, right? So hope I think sebaceous cyst is there, and all this we have discussed up, right? So now, if you have any doubts, you can open up, or else I have many doubts. So, do you have any doubts? You can ask me.
Sir,
Yeah,
what is the difference between folliculitis and furuncle?
folliculitis and furuncle, they are one and same only. Ma. Folliculitis infection of hair follicle, and furuncle is also an infection.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anything else? Anybody? How can we? What is fluctuation? What is fluctuation? If you have heard to my class, I think you can answer up. What is fluctuation? I told up very clearly. If somebody is talking, I don't know, but you can speak up. What is fluctuation? It's not audible to me, I don't know. Anybody, 111 of you are there. Yeah, somebody. Naga Tejasvi. So fluctuation is whenever you have any swelling which is going to contain either a fluid or a gas, right? It's going to shift. You apply pressure below the swelling, all the fluid is going to shift above, right? And once you apply a pressure above, all the fluid or the gas is going to shift down. So this is what is fluctuation. You apply pressure below, it expands above. Apply pressure above, it expands below. It's up, moves, the fingers moves apart because the fluid or the gas is going to shift. That is what is fluctuation. Fluctuation, right? What is transillumination? Somebody can speak up. What is transillumination? If you have listened to me, then I think you should answer up.
Sir, when
When the swelling
a swelling
Yeah, go on, no problem, go on.
when a swelling contains a clear fluid, if it is illuminated from one side, the light passes through it and it can be seen from the other side, sir.
Right, good. So whenever you have when a swelling contains either a gas or a fluid, that is going to be clear, right? So once you apply a torch on the one side, what is going to happen? The light rays are going to pass through it, through a clear fluid, and the other side is being illuminated. That is what is transillumination positive. Now, whenever this is going for an hematoma, are you going to get a transillumination? Yes or no?
No.
No, sir.
Yeah. No, because it's going to contain a blood cells. You're going to have blood and all. So it is not going to allow the light rays to pass up, right? So whenever you have an infection, for example, hydrocele is there. Initially, it will be transillumination. Positive will be there. Now, if it is an infected hydrocele, what will happen? It is going to contain pus, pyocele. It is going to contain exudates. And once it's going to contain exudates, transillumination will not be present, right? Slip away sign. What is slip away sign? Where do you see it?
Lipoma, sir.
Right, good. What is that? What is it? Elaborate slip away sign.
The margins of the swelling, they yield to the pressure of the finger, sir.
That is, what do you mean to say? This definition, the thing that you have said, what do you want to convey with that? See, understand? See, thing is, when margins yield to the pressure, that is, I'm applying a pressure over the edge of it. Edge of a swelling, when I apply a pressure, if I am able to feel that margin, it is usually cystic swelling. Okay? Whenever you have cyst and all, when you apply a pressure over the edge of the cyst, you will be able to feel the edge of it. That is what is, it yields to the palpating finger. The cyst wall or the edge of the cyst yields to the palpating finger. But whereas in lipoma, it's going to contain the fatty tissue. So whenever you're going to apply or feel the edge of it, it slips away. So slip away sign is, it does not yield. The palpating finger does not yield the edge of the swelling. That is, it slips up. That is what is slip away sign, right? Just opposite of what you told up. Okay. So do you have any doubts? You can ask up. If not, we'll wind up. Do you have anything? Or things are a bit clear? Anything to ask? Any doubts or something? Okay. So what I will just say or suggest up is, just go through these all things once. If you have your surgical textbook, SRB or whatever you're following, just read once. Once you go through the swellings, some 10-15 minutes, if you spend half an hour, if you just read up, things will become clear and it will retain for you for a longer time. Okay? Am I clear? Fine, it's clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just read up, Mama. Okay, because once you see up, you may remember for 2-3 days or 5 days. Again, you may last up. So just go through your book once, some 15-20 minutes or half an hour. Things will become much clear for you, right? Okay, thank you.